back to Melissa in the Morning. WICC 695.9, the voice of Connecticut.
We told you this week that there was an operation that was going on in the Northeast. It was called Operation Broken Trust. And ICE, the U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement, they ultimately arrested 65 people in multiple Connecticut cities, including Norwalk and Stamford, in the last week. And it's really drawing a lot of mixed criticism. Some who say, I feel a lot safer because people were taken off the streets who are criminals. Others who are saying, well, a lot of the people who were arrested were solely arrested and treated like criminals because of their immigration status, because they are simply living here illegally. And so I wanted to talk about this with somebody who certainly has a better handle on what's happening nationally and kind of can have that open conversation here on the air. Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who is an immigration attorney. She's actually the owner and CEO of Lincoln-Goldfinch Law. And so, Kate, you certainly have been seeing well before anything has happened in the last year with the new administration, and certainly years, I would think, of practice. You've seen the efforts that have been put in nationally to get a better handle on the border and immigration. But I want to have this conversation of ICE arrests. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on. Good morning.
I mean, that's the part that I think we need a little more compromise on. We right now, as a nation, if you are more of a Republican state, you're working with ICE. If you're more of a Democratic state, which is what Connecticut is, you're completely against ICE. You don't belong here. You shouldn't be coming into our cities and towns. We don't want you in our state. And to some degree, I think that we should sort of get away from politics and talk about really what's happening here. I think there's a difference between getting dangerous criminals off the streets, which according to the news report I was reading, 29 of those 65 arrests, those were people who were charged or convicted of very serious, awful crimes. But that leads me to believe that more than half of the people who were arrested were being arrested and treated like criminals because of their legal status here.
Right, and that's what we've been seeing. I mean, ICE will tell us that they're doing mostly targeted arrests, and that's not exactly what we're seeing around the country, particularly in places that are more sanctuary-type places. They'll just go and do these sort of scattershot arrests at the Home Depot parking lots, et cetera. But when they do these targeted arrests, they might have someone who they would tell the public is a criminal. In my experience, this is usually someone who might have a removal order. It might be someone from Iran who has a removal order from decades ago or something like that. But then what they do in these targeted arrests is they go for collateral arrests. So they go to someone's house or someone's place of work or pick them up off the street, and then they're looking for anyone in the midst, and they will arrest those people as well. So it's a bit of a misnomer because what's happening is that these targeted arrests with maybe one person on a list might result in 5 other people who have no criminal history.
I'm curious, in your professional opinion, Kate, do you think ICE does mass arrests? And when you see some of the videos of these arrests, they've been described as pretty brutal. Do you think that they act that way, or they do these, as you're mentioning, kind of targeted arrests? Do you think they're doing that more in states that are against them, or do you find that it's kind of the average way that they act since they've had to, go through with some of the actions coming from Washington?
Oh, they definitely retaliate against jurisdictions that they view as uncooperative. And there's varying levels of cooperation, from giving ICE access to the local county jails to actually telling the police force that they must cooperate with and, ride along with ICE. But in the jurisdictions like Los Angeles, which is just full-blown sanctuary, we won't cooperate with ICE, they will retaliate by going in and doing these massive raids in those areas. But in other places that might be somewhat down the middle, I would guess Connecticut is probably in that group, although I haven't studied it, they're going to go in and do these sort of loud, splashy, what they'll tell you are targeted operations, but what they're looking for are big numbers. And I think they do try to send a message to jurisdictions that you got to get in line and cooperate with us, or we're going to come in and, do actions like this. And I think it puts these places that are pro-immigration and they understand public safety and that immigration is good, but what do we do as a county or as a city or as a state in terms of our relationship with ICE so that we can keep our immigrant community protected while also not drawing the ire of the agency? And it really is a difficult needle to thread, I think, for a lot of places.
Well, and the reason I ask that, again, we've got Kate here, who is an immigration attorney. She actually owns and is the CEO of her own practice, and really understands sort of what we're seeing, the climate, not just in Connecticut, but across the country with ICE operations. I mean, I'm glad you outlined the retaliation aspect of it, Kate, because I don't think it is a mistake or coincidental that earlier this month, Connecticut was named one of just a short list of states as a sanctuary state. Now, of course, our governor, our attorney general, they don't condone that. They don't believe we are a sanctuary state. However, if you look at what ICE has said, they say, well, Connecticut has this Trust Act in place. In fact, we bolstered our Trust Act, which basically says our municipalities, our police cannot work with and cannot help or help facilitate or have anything really to do with ICE. We're very hands off, and we outwardly in press conferences, what have you, say that ICE doesn't belong here. You can't come here. And I think Connecticut has made it very clear that they're against any sort of these types of arrests. And again, then this operation happens, where you have mass arrests that are going on, like I said, 65 people within 4 days. And so the reason I bring that up is whether or not people agree or disagree with the arrests, that's one thing. I think Connecticut's shooting itself in the foot. I think if there are going to be ICE operations, or we're going to have federal agents who are coming in and arresting people, wouldn't you rather it be in a more civil way? Wouldn't you rather have our municipalities work with ICE and again, be able to sift through better? Hey, these are bad guys or gals, and these folks are just here illegally, and we need to deport properly. I don't know how you feel about that.
I definitely do not think that cities or like local police departments or sheriffs should enforce immigration laws or call ICE on people. I think that really sets immigrants will start to leave if you start to have those policies. They will be resistant to reporting crime or being witnesses to crime, and public safety begins to erode when an entire section of the population won't communicate or work with law enforcement anymore. It's actually really bad, and I've been in a lot of the committee hearings in the Texas legislature where these issues come up, and where, leaders of sheriff's departments will come in and say, we don't want this. We don't have the capacity to understand or enforce immigration laws. We're doing our jobs with public safety, and we are not immigration agents. So I really do think it makes sense to create a distinction between federal immigration enforcement and local law enforcement, but the way that it's messaged, I think, is really critical. So if the state comes out, and passes legislation, does a lot of press conferences, and is very loudly sanctuary, I mean, that's a political position to take, and I certainly stand behind that. I think it's brave and powerful that California does it the way that they do it, and you have to understand it does bring consequences. It really angers the Trump administration and the leadership of ICE, and they say, okay, if you're not going to help us, then we're going to come in and show you what we're going to do. And so really the culprit here, of course, is the Trump administration, because these are just hardworking people who are here supporting our economy. We need them. We need them in agriculture. We need them in the medical field. We need them in construction, in all sectors. I mean, immigration is what makes this country run. It's what makes this country who we are. And so we have to sort of back up and say, why are we even having this conversation? We've gotten off on the wrong foot. But to the specific question about how does Connecticut respond, how do the localities respond, it is a tricky situation. It really is. How do you thread that needle?
So, Kate, can you hold on one second? We're going to continue the conversation after a quick break. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Melissa in the Morning.
The voice of Connecticut, WICC 695.9. It's Melissa in the Morning.
We're still kind of working through what happened recently here in Connecticut, where there was an ICE operation and 65 people were arrested between the time of August 12th and 15th. And out of the 65, according to reports, 29 of the people arrested had criminal backgrounds. They were either charged or convicted with horrific crimes. And it leads, though, many people to still feel like, well, wait a minute, what about the rest of the people who were just arrested in pretty violent ways? And they were just here illegally. Why couldn't that have been handled more appropriately? We're talking to Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who is an immigration attorney, and talking more, I'd say, largely about what we're seeing nationally, but then kind of relating back to Connecticut. Kate, you just said that this really falls on the fault of the Trump administration. Your opinion is it falls on Trump. Do you believe our country is trying, though, to build Rome in a day, meaning that Donald Trump is, not the first president to admit we have a border crisis unlike any other country in the world? Both Democrats and Republican leaders have wanted to secure the border and remove people who are here illegally, but haven't been able to successfully do it. So do you think these ICE operations are really being directed to try and clean up a mess faster than possible? I mean, this is really a problem that's gotten out of control, and it's been enabled for too long.
No, I actually disagree with that rhetoric completely. And I think that the Biden administration didn't fail necessarily in border policies, but what they failed to do was to talk about immigration and tell the truth about what was happening, because we don't have an immigration crisis in this country. We need immigrants more than ever. We have an aging baby boomer population, and almost half of our home health care workers are immigrants, for example. But it was a really powerful message and motivating message for Trump to come on board and to convince the American public that we had an invasion happening of dangerous people, and it wasn't true, and there wasn't a strong enough message countering that narrative. So people have sort of bought it hook, line, and sinker, and it's not actually true. But that's been the big problem, honestly, is the messaging around immigration and the rhetoric around immigration. And the statistics all, of course, show that immigrants commit crime at a much lower rate than native-born citizens, and that immigrants are important in all sorts of ways and all sorts of sectors. And what Trump is doing right now is really horrific. I mean, what we're seeing on the ground is absolutely devastating and heartbreaking. The videos that people have seen of these arrests that result in family separations. I have two clients I can think of right now who have had their children taken from them in detention. One is a single dad with a 6-year-old boy. The other is a family of 4, a mom, a dad, and 2 little girls, ages 4 and 10. No criminal history. These are asylum seekers who were picked up and detained and separated in detention. Their children were sent to different detention centers. And we've been working on just getting these people reunited with their children, which is supposed to occur today. Actually, they're supposed to be reunited today. But these are just, samplings of what we're seeing across the board. And in my practice, and the statistics will show that the majority of the people that the Trump administration has apprehended and detained have no criminal history whatsoever. In fact, more than 70% of them. These are good, hardworking people who make this country run. And we have to start countering the narrative and not just believing that we have an immigration problem. We have an immigration benefit. Immigrants are great for this country, and that is the actual truth.
But then why did President Barack Obama deport more than 2 million people in his administration time? And we do have an issue at the border being secure with drugs coming into our country. I mean, I agree you can't really say the two are the same, but I do think that Democrats and Republicans agree the border is a disaster, and it has been for many years.
Yeah, I mean, Obama's numbers were at the border. But I think, when we think about the rhetoric around immigration and policy around immigration, Reagan, of course, was a Republican, but he spoke very highly of immigrants. And so did George Bush. And Obama was pretty moderate on immigration. But what Trump did was he used the immigration threat for his own benefit. And he convinced people that we were under siege, that, Venezuelan migrants are all drug trafficking gang members. I know them. They are not, by and large. And so he used this message to empower himself and convince people that all immigrants or the majority of immigrants are bad. I mean, he told us that they were eating people's pets. Kristi Noem said that they were, cannibalizing themselves. I mean, these are just outlandish claims that they're making about these people. And we have to we have to think, why are they telling this? How do they benefit from this message? So that's the thing that I really wish for us right now as we start to think about how to push back and how to counter all of this narrative is to just, start using some critical thinking when they're making claims about migrants. Check the statistics, because the truth is, we have asylum seekers in this country. We have people who come in. There are some of them who are drug traffickers, and we need secure borders, and we need good laws and policies, and all of that is true. And the vast majority of immigrants in this country are good, hardworking people who help make this country run, and we need to show them appreciation and respect. Because I can also tell you that most of the immigrants I know are getting really fatigued by all of this rhetoric, and I know a lot of good people who are leaving this country because they don't want to live like this. They can't take it anymore, and these are people who own businesses, who own homes, who do a lot for this country, and we're going to start to feel it. I mean, construction is down 30% in Dallas. Agriculture is down in California. It has begun, and we're going to all start to feel the pain of what we're doing to immigrants in every sector, in every state, very soon.
Immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, thank you so much for your perspective. We appreciate your time.